Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Lost in Criterion. I'm John Patrick Overtired Dorgan, and with me, as always, is Bill Murray's best friend.
I really wish I was Bill Murray's best friend. I am the Adam Glass. This week, Bill Murray comes up because we were talking about Wes Anderson's sophomore film, Rushmore. I wanted to say sophomore and Rushmore. It rhymes because they're the same syllable, but it's just what I wanted to do. It came out in 1998, and as a special treat, people, you may have noticed the editing was a little better this episode. That's because Pat's actually sitting beside me. Not only is Pat sitting beside me, we got a group of people together here in America where Pat is this week. Ooh. To talk about Rushmore with us. So, going around the circle, we have my good friend Amanda Morant, who insists on being British for this episode. Amanda, say hello.
Hello.
Cheerio to you. Friend of the show, Donovan Hill.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Back once again to talk about a non-Japanese film that also isn't RoboCop.
I think we talked about more. Haven't I been on for more than just RoboCop?
No, just the Japanese films and RoboCop.
I think during that time I talked enough shit about the fact that Armageddon was on the Criterion collection that like counts.
You
as
weren't
a
actually here for that episode.
Right. So yeah, hey, thanks for having me back. Pat's good to see you back in. Well, period. Basically, since pretty much never see you with your Japanese thing.
That was a confusing sentence.
And
you parse that. I'm not.
And over on the couch to my right, we have Casey Hape. Say hello, Casey.
Hello, Casey.
Oh.
Keeping it old school.
Yeah.
Yes. And the guy who wrote our theme song, Jonathan Hape.
Hi.
It's a good time to play the theme song. And we're back.
That didn't take long.
I wrote it that quick. So.
It's a good fade.
Yeah. So we're talking about Rushmore, as I said, Wes Anderson's second film. Possibly Wes Anderson's most Wes Anderson film until Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah, until he made a more Wes Anderson-y film.
That sure is the most. What's that guy's name? Jason
really
Schwartzman,
way
isn't
to
it?
look at it?
Yes.
Yeah, it is the most Jason Schwartzman-y of all films. Therefore, it is probably the most Wes Anderson-y of all of his films.
And that's pretty much the whole movie in a nutshell.
Hella Jason Schwartzman. The end.
I would definitely disagree in a lot of ways, seeing how sure it is a leap from Bottle Rocket, and it is a little more angsty and youthful, which is something that he's known for, but he definitely continues doing everything that Minute that created his style, and really even Fantastic Mr. Fox is a huge step for him, seeing how he animated with everything leading up to Moonrise Kingdom.
Well, one interesting thing bringing up Fantastic Mr. Fox is that's obviously based on the Roald Dahl story. One thing that Owen Wilson, who co-wrote this, and Wes Anderson tried to do was to create a Roald Dahl style universe for their story. And I just think that when we get to Moonrise Kingdom, he's fully encapsulated that.
No, and that's
much more than any of the other movies, period.
I would agree. Stylistically, I think that there's a lot more to Wes Anderson than that, but this is really the most green and beginning part of what you'll see.
I don't mean to say that atmosphere is the only thing that makes Wes Anderson Wes Anderson.
Right, exactly.
I'll go ahead and say that.
Donovan will go ahead and say that.
I'll go ahead and say this film is hella Jason Schwartzman looking like fucking Jason Schwartzman looks in a Wes Anderson movie. And therefore it is the most Wes Anderson of films.
And it's his first movie ever. He was just drumming for Phantom Planet at the time and was found completely against what they were even looking for. And so it really did set the tone for what Wes Anderson would do. But yeah, I mean...
He sure does have that bike.
And yeah, that's really funny because they talk about how pathetic the bike is. They're like, everybody who had to ride one of those back then was embarrassed. It was your older sister's bike. It was your mother's bike. And that, I think, is really something that became...
That ironically...
It became ironic.
A generation of hipsters raised on Wes Anderson films, the Fixie bike became...
Well, I think so.
The fixture bike, if you will. In that it became a fixture of that culture.
I'm really glad that I can see your eyebrows going up.
Yeah. I wanted to emphasize there was something vaguely academic about the point I just made.
Yeah.
You're doing a marvelous Jason Schwartzman impression, though.
Only he had a pipe.
I like to think that in a lot of ways, Jason Schwartzman and I have nothing in common.
Well, he's very Holden Caulfield throughout the film, and that's the thing, is you love the fact that he's a scoundrel, or you hate the fact that he's a scoundrel.
Yeah, I think that's why I've always disliked this movie.
Right.
Me too.
Because I don't like Holden Caulfield.
But here's I think you are intended to dislike him because, as I was saying before we started the podcast, I think this is a film about people that Wes Anderson hates. Like this film is about a bunch of characters that are not intended to be liked by the audience. There are no favorites. It's just a bunch of miserable people being miserable to each other.
Oh, but it's about loving the faults within that. And I think that they take excellent care of not only the good, but also the bad within all those people, and sum it up in the end with the play very well. It's very heartwarming at the same time as it's incredibly disharmonic. You know, it does both things. You see all the colors and you see their contrast. And their similarities, which I think is really fantastic. But sorry, you were about to say something.
That's all right.
Amanda.
I was just going to say that I don't particularly dislike any of the characters. You know, and I know that they clearly all have their faults, and but they have so many other things that I find endearing. You know, whether it's, I don't know, just Jason Schwartzman's adolescent fixation on the object of his affections, and I lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was trying to say there.
Yeah.
But
I think you're focusing on the
I
actor.
was
It
going to
could
say
be,
you're
it
really
could be.
committing, but I feel
But-
like that may sidetrack you.
it might. But I feel like it's lending an artificial weight to what I'm saying, whereas your eyebrows can't be seen.
That's assuming we're not going to put a picture of Donovan
Right.
with raised eyebrows on the
Like-
website.
Like a
for this
gravitas.
episode.
Of the eyebrows was felt by everyone here.
The foie gras.
Yeah, it was a sort of, the foie. Yes, the
Foie gras.
the je ne sais quoi
The force-fed goose liver.
the force-fed goose liver, je crois, je ne sais quoi, couture.
Wes Anderson.
Right, it's basically what this film's about. And I think that's really exemplified in the scene where Bill Murray smokes a cigarette seconds from suicide and then just falls into a pool.
Oh yeah, which is beautiful.
Right.
Absolutely.
That is, I remember watching this film with our friend Tobias, who it's a pity is not here because, good Christ, if ever there was someone to have in for Rushmore.
Oh yeah.
It's someone
I know.
who's pretty much the only film he's ever seen is Rushmore because he just watches it endlessly every single day.
He showed me the film
Right.
originally.
And he just like, I remember the first time I saw this film was with him, and I said, what is he, like, what the hell's going on here? And because I was like looking for something, I think I was looking for something deeper or something, and Tobias goes, no, it's just supposed to be like this really horribly wretched like character moment where you just see how completely dead to everything is, including himself, this guy is, and how he's just like completely past any semblance of enjoying life whatsoever, and is just like in this totally horrible state of mind and being where he's
Well, his sons and like his,
right. He's
you
just
know,
like doing this. He's just like completely dead inside, and this whole scene does not have a bigger point. It's just there to illustrate that Bill Murray is a hateful person who hates everything.
Fun, interesting
Speaking
aside
of his sons, yeah.
about his
Adam
son,
knows
something we
something.
read this afternoon.
As Bill Murray's best friend, I would hope you did.
Of course. Apparently, Bill Murray was so annoyed by the twin actors who played his sons
Oh yeah.
that most of his violent explosions toward them in the film are improvisational. And he just did it because they were annoying him in real life.
Again, Bill Murray is probably our generation's greatest actor.
Well, yeah.
He does do a good job of hating life, absolutely, and you know having no purpose, and that's kind of where Max comes into play in the film. Is kind of researching his life, and of course he's misdirected to loving the same affection of Max's, but in the end they all just kind of find the center around this rambunctious child, and that kind of gives him purpose. He builds the aquarium, he does all these outlandish things, and you find out it's not for love or misguidedness. Even this man who totally rigs his entire life against him kind of gives him hope. Again, being the faults are equal to the grandeur that everybody gleans from it.
I never really saw Bill Murray's character as being a hateful person. I just think that everything about his life didn't turn out the way that he wanted it to. Like, he couldn't imagine having the children that he had, and his wife blatantly flirting with someone else at the party and everything. And then when he meets Max, you know, he wants to know his secret. He wants to know how he has it all together because he thinks it does, and obviously he doesn't because he's 15 and he's winging it the whole time.
And most of what he's told people about his life is a lie.
Right.
Right. Oh yeah. Which is, I understand why you guys, especially people that I honor for honesty, you know, would dislike a character who does that. And
how old was Schwartzman when he made this? I don't know.
He was 15 as well.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, which is funny because he's never grown.
I was going to say, Jason Schwartzman has like a really creepy ageless quality that looks the exact same regardless of like what time frame of his life he's in.
He does look older when he
I was going to say,
mustache.
he looks like 23, somewhere between 23 and 28 in this film, the way he does in every other film he's ever made.
Right, like they just put braces on a guy in his 20s, yeah.
Well, maybe he was 20 and had braces. We don't know. Let's not judge Jason Schwartzman. We don't know him.
We know.
Well,
did he have braces?
I don't think he actually had braces, no.
This is not going to end well, guys.
There's a cat by the microphone, and we'll
Shoot
just
cat.
live.
I learned how to do this.
Oh, really? This is part of your training?
Huzzah!
Jonathan,
what we're going to talk about today, folks, is if there's a cat next to the microphone. Look at diagram A in your textbooks, please.
You'll be surprised. You'll think this couldn't happen to me. I was
You are wrong. You would not believe how many rappers bring their blinged out cats to the recording.
And then they have the jingles and the
It's
dangles.
horrible.
And
Uncontrollable.
I was a nom.
Pat, what are your thoughts on the film as we kind of...
I'm not going to contribute.
Pat, what are your thoughts on
As
Nom?
far as I'm concerned, me and Adam kind of shared a moment afterwards while we were talking,
This is
kind
a
of deconstructing it.
kid-friendly podcast. Thanks.
I don't think it is.
Well, both of us, we were talking about why we both hate this film. And
I did not word it like that.
Adam said, I fucking cannot stand this piece of garbage.
And I liked it better this time than I did the first time because I was forced to watch it by a roommate. And I felt
Was that roommate Adam like 10 minutes ago?
No. I'd seen it before, but
In the
a long
room.
time ago. It was in college, so but I at least feel that around the time where he stops being a fucking liar, the movie gets good.
Yes.
It gets interesting to watch as his life pulls together, rather than just being the disgusting shambles that it is at the beginning. I can't hardly stand that, which makes it a really bad movie for me because we've had this before in other movies. Getting through the first half of the film is so painful that it makes the second half of the film not that enjoyable for me.
Well, I think my problem with that is, you know, it's a pretty classic comedic arc. You know, he's dropping and dropping, and he hits rock bottom, and then he comes back, and that's, you know, it's thousands of years old. That's Greek. But the fact that everything happening to him is completely self-induced.
Right.
Is where I start. You know, I don't have the sympathy for the character.
Well, but I think that's what I like about it because that's what people do to themselves in real life.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I think that's what I've never disliked this movie. I like it a bit more now than I did when I was younger, but I've always identified with the progression. You know, people have terrible characteristics. They have wonderful characteristics, and sometimes the terrible ones win. But then sometimes they don't. Things turn around, and everyone is happy and adorable.
I remember like distinctly not liking this movie very much first time I saw it. Just kind of for similar reasons. Just like, this is just a really boring movie about like a boring and kind of pretentious movie about like shitty people being shitty. And there's like, you're supposed to be like, and that's where the art is in life, man.
Well, again,
like,
that's
like,
the same reason I didn't like Catcher in the Rye the first time I read it. And I read Catcher in the Rye, and I saw this for the first time around the same time.
I remember really
And it's
liking
just-
the Bill Murray's like falls into a pool smoking a cigarette scene, like after Spies pointed it out. And then like that was like the only part of that movie I liked for a real long time. It's just like such a great scene of a man seconds from suicide at any given time.
In his, it's it's all very comedic. I've always seen his films as very artistic and very large and very, dramatic. But and seeing Royal Tenenbaums, you say it's depressing, but it's comedy and like through and through. Even Bill Murray, after they've been sabotaging one another and like. He admits to him, I was going to make that tree fall on you. And it's, it's a very silly moment, but then he just pulls it and it falls. He could have killed him. These are irrational thinking people because people become irrational. Obviously, Wes Anderson does it in such like a surreal children's story like sort of way. Like as you mentioned about Margaret Yang being there and not, flying out the plane.
The scene with Margaret Yang and they're flying the kites and her plane flies by and lands and then she's suddenly 4 feet away from them as if she arrived on the plane.
Right.
And then she leaves the same way. She says goodbye and then we follow the plane flying away and then she's just gone.
And that's where I'm saying about his style, things like that, I've never really noticed. And if you were to notice it in that film, it would seem really inconsistent. Whereas when that sort of stuff happens in Life Aquatic, it's no big deal because the rest of the movie is so eschew and so haphazard in the most wonderful ways that like his style kept getting more that way. Person's really close, person's really far away. They do that in Darjeeling Unlimited. In fact, a lot with the bus, like it goes by, and even after very serious moments, make physical and visual jokes like that, which are cool.
Well, and I think you hit on the thing that makes it funny is the overreaching absurdism of it. The tree falling and the lengths that they're willing to go to sabotage each other.
Right.
I mean, if it had a more serious tone, I think that would be it would be awful to watch.
Yeah, the movie wouldn't work.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, exactly. But with that edge of whimsy.
If it
it's a bit more entertaining.
If it maintained its serious tone, I think we basically would have gotten, blanking on the director's name, but we basically would have gotten Antichrist just like a decade earlier. What's that? Oh my,
I have no idea who directed Antichrist.
Like I think that's one of the reasons what you brought up is why I prefer the later Wes Anderson films. Is because the absurdity actually gets stronger.
Lars von Trier was the...
Okay.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay,
So, so you feel that that it takes down the seriousness a little bit, balances it out better than this one. For me, the absurdity is so... It's absurd, but it's not that kind of crazy absurd that appears later on that makes me feel, oh, these are horrible people, but... This is an absurd world. This one is close enough to reality,
and I get
that it's like, oh, this is disgusting.
In Bottle Rocket, I felt that way very much about in ways because I'm not as much of a fan, and I know people that would say that it's their favorite Wes Anderson movie, probably for a lot of different reasons. But Rushmore, in the same effect, like when they're at the dinner table and he's drunk because Bill Murray, again, all bad decisions. Just
right.
Even the teacher's. Leading this child and the man onward enough to make this awkward of a situation, inviting him to the thing. It's all terrible, and it's painful to watch. And I think at that point, probably the first time I saw it, I was just like,
right, exactly, and that's why I want the more absurdity to make me feel like, oh, this is not a real world.
The problem is that this film was, like, in some ways way too similar to, like, most of the career of Ben Stiller. In that it is just like, oh my god, I can't watch these people just self-inflicting these terrible social situations on each other with such a blind stupidity that nobody in real life would ever do.
You're just
like
embarrassed
it's
for
just
them.
Meet the
Instead of
Parents,
entertained
but
by
with
them.
like way more fixie bikes.
But I see how it can be seen that superficially. I feel like very much so. It's at the other end of the spectrum, using that kind of comedy in a way.
I think it's darker, definitely.
It's
It is like
definitely darker.
it is like 1,000 times darker and more fixie bikes version of Meet the Parents.
What are you going to do when Ben Stiller starts using that many fixie bikes? Where are you going to draw your comparisons?
It's sort of similar, like, I think, that is like obviously
Awkward
a gross
humor.
oversimplification of it, but it
yeah.
is essentially the Wes Anderson version of a Ben Stiller comedy.
Well,
But, which is all the more funny then that the commercial I saw the other day for Ben Stiller's like The Secret Life of whatever it is guy.
The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Which looks like a Wes Anderson film starring Bill.
But that's the weird thing about it, though. Is like in the Ben Stiller, I agree. In the Ben Stiller verse, which I assume is a thing, they all exist in the same universe. That is trying to be played for comedic value in the way that like a normal comedy is done,
like Seinfeld,
which is not great.
Yeah,
right.
Which in Wes Anderson films is like played for comedy, but not actually. Like is played deadpan and left to you to find comedy. In the Ben Stiller films, you're supposed to feel that's a funny thing. In the Wes Anderson films, you're supposed to feel that pain.
You're supposed to feel it very painful.
Yeah.
Right, and it does do that, but well, the Wes Anderson is effective. The Ben Stiller one, I feel the pain anyway. And I'm like,
just like from like a why
am I supposed to be watching this?
But I don't buy into the drama of these characters. Ben Stiller.
There's a big connect though, because Ben Stiller and obviously Owen Wilson worked a lot together. Owen Wilson got his start through doing Bottle Rocket and then writing Rushmore, which I think is such a huge feat for him, because then 98, you look at that, it's like that, then Royal Tenenbaums, they work together, and then Zoolander. What a weird crossing over.
Also, what the hell happened to Ben Stiller that he had like that and Zoolander and all these films that worked comedically,
right?
Both from like a hyper absurdist perspective, like Zoolander, or the like. And now one of the Wilson brothers is going to like slit his wrists in a bathtub of Royal Tenenbaums, and like
absolutely fantastic.
And they are going to like film it in like the most drawn out manner imaginable, and then, and then on to the Ben Stiller career that has since been Ben Stiller's career. I don't know what the fuck, Ben.
But you're going to get an email.
Notwithstanding that, like, I think, you got...
My problem...
right.
My problem with Meet the Parents has never been Ben Stiller, because I do have that relationship with just being embarrassed for him, but my problem with Meet the Parents and Meet the Foxers was always...
De Niro?
De Niro in his, hey, look at me, I'm Robert De Niro in a comedy phase.
Yes.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro doing a comedy. Isn't great, isn't funny. I'm gone.
That's... I mean, I don't know what you thought Taxi Driver was, but that's... That was always how I interpreted, are you talking to me? Because I'm Robert De Niro in a comedy. This is so crazy.
The one on the other side of the mirror.
Right. One of the two was, what the reflection was comedy of Robert De Niro. That was, however, 100% straight comedy, Young Jodie Foster the Prostitute.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Also, the creepy sax soundtrack was also mostly done by Ben Stiller.
During his comedy sax.
Yeah.
Now, I know you guys have expressed distaste, obviously, in the writing, or even at least the tone of the film. What did you guys think about the actors in general and actresses who portray? Because I find everything is very... he does everything very subdued, but he picks things very correctly.
I would agree with that. I think that, obviously Jason Schwartzman is I think they exemplify, in a lot of ways, like you were saying, Rushmore is kind of like distilled Wes Anderson, even though it is not necessarily... It is like a distilled, essential Wes Anderson, even if it is not, if it is in some ways also proto Wes Anderson.
Absolutely.
Because I think that if you look at this film, the deadpan, super dark comedy aspects of Wes Anderson is basically the Bill Murray character, and these I'm flawed, but also I've got this fixie bike, and I'm an insufferable indie kid in the making, aspect of Wes Anderson films is Jason Schwartzman, which then he would go on to play that character in every other film. But
and then you have Dirk, who has the childish aspect of things.
Right, but each character is expertly picked to convey not just the character in this film, but again, both the essential distilled and early formations of Wes Anderson that are elements or characters in pretty much every film he does is these characters in in their most purest form.
Yeah.
In the roughest cut.
I think it's interesting
the first class record.
With that.
It's basically the first class record.
Well, this is one of his first opportunities.
Wes Anderson wants you to take it down to the Clash City Rocker because they need a little joke of electrical shocker.
Yeah, exactly.
Fixie bikes.
No, I think that's very interesting because one thing that I find with these characters is that they're strong enough, even the throwaway other people, like what's his name, the Scottish kid.
Yeah. Oh,
I want to say his name, but I'm worried
everybody's-
I'll just be racist. So I'm gonna say like
I think
McGinty
it's
or
Tipsy
something like
O'Reilly.
that. It's like McGinty or something like that, isn't it?
Okay, but everybody's strong enough
That's
that
my
as
opinion,
soon as
right.
you see them, as soon as they talk, you know who they are, and it's not necessarily he's pretty flat, but it's not necessarily just because they're flat. You know the characters as soon as they're there.
So what you're saying is he's the Charles Dickens of movies. Because their names might as well tell you who they are.
That's actually very true. He does that, and Casey's always pointed out to me, I was like, oh, it's cool, like in Royal Tenenbaums was the first time I noticed. I was like,
Tuppence
how
Holy
he-
Socks,
Well, how
the
he
famous
has-
Dickens character, street urchin character
They
child.
all have a costume. They all have a costume, and in each act, it is modified or changed depending on what phase they're in. And everybody wears a specific thing. It's just the way that they talk is the same way, the way that they're filmed is the same way.
Yeah.
And every character is a character in a play. And that's why even no matter what the movie is he does, everybody comes out at the end. And, this one's fun because they end with the Vietnam,
Well, this one even takes that play motif even further, because not only does the main character continually write plays,
it takes
but
it even further, but it's the first movie where he
Yeah.
does that thing.
Yeah.
And that, again, back
So
to
everything
distilled but proto. Like,
yeah. So we have the every month is introduced with the curtains opening.
yeah.
and-
Which he did with a projector, which I thought was really neat. That's physically
yeah.
them doing it.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that.
I don't think you're going to be able to
You
get that
didn't
door open.
I'm gonna.
It's usually jammed. Oh, never mind. I think
You're
I
a
must
jam.
replace it.
Sick Burns here
Good
on
job.
the movie podcast.
Oh man,
Jonathan gave you a pretty.
Jonathan
What'd you
standing
say?
up to get a cigarette has
Jonathan went to go
completely
smoke.
thrown me off.
Yeah. So now we're going to end the
Ruined.
podcast. No.
It's
Oh,
not
I'm using-
ruined.
Oh,
No.
what?
Because he's going to continue to talk into the podcast. From
And
out
then
there.
we're just going to say, "What did you say?"
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
not,
what's going
it's not going to
everybody
be
said.
picked up at all.
And no
That's
one's
what we
for
should
it.
do.
Okay.
Just
So-
yell.
It's
Anyway,
I'll translate.
on that note, Bill Murray wears the same suit the entire time, except he changes his shirts. It's very clear that there's
Well, and yeah, we see it get really, really bad, and they get
except for
better.
the
and
except for the point where he's in the bathing suit. He's in the same suit the
I
entire time.
wish he had been wearing the suit then too. But
I think this was also kind of, in a lot of ways, this was the. Speaking of Bill Murray, I would say this was probably where Bill Murray's late in life acting career launched. Wouldn't you say? This was definitely where
Yeah.
he went from being the kind of zany, wild card goofball character that he played all during, basically the character he played in every single comedy in the 80s, Venkman from Ghostbusters.
well, but
It's
here's-
basically when he stopped being Venkman from Ghostbusters and that dude from Caddyshack, what been quoted by everyone forever. He stopped being that guy or Groundhog Day, and this kind of Bill Murray, super deadpan, super dry, in a lot of ways the polar opposite of the totally zany, dialed to 11 up performance from his 80s characters. This is where I think that started, which has been, in case you didn't notice, every single Bill Murray role since this film came
here's
out.
what I'm going to say about that. I don't disagree, but if you go back and watch Ghostbusters, like I do every day,
Right.
you'll notice that
2
Bill
hours
Murray's
including
delivery
wind
in
down.
there is still super deadpan.
Some of
he
it
is,
is-
he is
Dry.
very, very. He's always been very good at delivering jokes in a way that makes you go, "That was a joke."
Right. I'm not, and obviously to some
I mean,
extent,
you're
Bill
right.
Murray-
It's way less zany. But
Right, it's not, I would say-
he's always been doing that.
It's even like cats and dogs living together. Sometimes, Bill Murray could also dial it up to 11.
Yeah.
In ways
Yeah.
that he just doesn't anymore, because
I think-
this type of character, just relentlessly dry, deadpan, almost somber character type, played in a lot of respects for its own brand of comedy, lost in translation aside, is what launched. I think this is where this is the movie that made everybody take another look at Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Which has
Absolutely.
which is outside of the other 15 Wes Anderson films he was in after that, turns out Wes Anderson couldn't stop looking at Bill Murray.
Well, and Bill Murray didn't want to leave Wes Anderson, and that's an amazing thing. He read Rushmore and loved it, and basically, and like
Bill Murray offered to be in this movie for free because he loved the script so much.
And he never saw Bottle Rocket. He has 3 copies that people gave him, and he's never watched it. He's just like, no, I like Rushmore.
Well,
and I like
that brings up an interesting
he
anecdote
lost
that you need to
translation
share about the helicopter.
Oh. There's a Touchstone picture. Disney wouldn't pay. They needed a helicopter shot or something, and Disney wouldn't pay the $75,000 that it was going to cost to do the shot. I don't even know where the shot is in the movie.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
But Bill Murray just handed Wes Anderson a blank check and said, "Do it," because he wanted to finish this movie.
And he's a boss.
I almost think it's towards the end with the kite. Like it's either that or when they're in the field doing the, digging up the baseball field. It's one of those two. I feel
I want to say it's one of those 2 shots is your biggest candidate for it. Although I didn't know that story about Bill Murray just saying I'm.
Yeah, he's like, here's money.
This is like 1 day's worth of the residuals for
Ghostbusters. It always comes back to Ghostbusters.
I think as far as 80s comedians turning into a late career, Bill Murray's got the best thing going for him.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like...
Which really, when you consider the fact that you can compare him directly to Dan Aykroyd, who has the worst thing going for him.
Hey,
it's really kind of
Dan Aykroyd has a great career in, like, unironically being a freaking weirdo in real life.
Yeah, he has Crystal Skull vodka, which like every time I see has a different display under it with different lights, and like now it's like Aerosmith's official drink. It's like, really? Just because it was Dan Aykroyd's wasn't good enough?
Yeah.
Or that it's in a skull, or that his lights.
Can you use them both at the same time?
So it's I mean, in a way, like, it's weird, like his cameo in Zombieland, which was infamously praised, is basically Bill Murray as his character from Rushmore and every subsequent Bill Murray film, even though it is like being played as a Ghostbusters throwback cameo. Like they are playing it for laughs because, hey, Bill Murray was in Ghostbusters, but the Bill Murray that like is being played on screen is post Rushmore Bill Murray.
Do you have any regrets?
Garfield.
No, maybe Garfield.
Right, like, that whole cameo is such a weird dichotomy because it is the joke is that get it, it's Bill Murray from Ghostbusters.
Let's point out that
Bill
Garfield
Murray
came out after Rushmore.
Right. But the Bill Murray you're getting is the Rushmore and onwards Bill Murray.
With the exception of Garfield.
With the exception of Garfield.
And that's why the cat's here.
Well, I assume that's why. I assume that he could get away with
Sheila.
not being now Bill Murray in Garfield because you couldn't see his face anyway. So.
Right. But that's my point is that like even cameos, even things that are referencing early Bill Murray are using post Rushmore Bill Murray because that is in a lot of ways the modern comedic take on Bill Murray.
Maybe that's just Bill Murray today.
Right.
Right.
So maybe he can't conjure
Being his
old...
best friend. I can tell you. That's just how he is, man.
I can imagine that. I get that impression a lot.
Something about the faults of characters and also equally about, oh, hey.
Let's go.
Pat's child is calling. Pat, away.
Pat, just say Daijobu, and then she won't worry.
He doesn't speak Japanese anyway.
He doesn't speak Japanese.
Nope.
Anyway, Jonathan, you were saying.
Oh, well, this
He
is
has something to contribute.
I know it's a child, but he's not going to contribute. And
Hey!
Hello.
Do you want to pause the recording?
Yeah.
no, I'll edit it later. It's fine.
Okay.
I didn't know that you had a girl.
No, I have a boy.
That's why I was like, something about the characters, again, that I could see being very much annoyed by is like, even up until towards the end, Max fakes a bike wreck.
Yeah.
He goes into her room. He puts fake blood on his own, mouth, and then puts the tape in. The whole thing is so planned and shows not only how messed up he is, but also his absolute persistence and his fervor and how he will stop at nothing to get what he deems as correct, which he's trying to figure out and is very misguided in. But even towards the end, is still making attempts like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's still in my mind, that's still the end of the second act. The third act is when he starts
Everything
to be a
redeemed and
person.
whatnot. Yeah.
But what I think
Understood.
is important about that scene is what it shows how messed up she is, because she knows that she doesn't have feelings for Max. She doesn't. It would be inappropriate even if she did. But she's still, there's something in her that wants that attention, and so she doesn't immediately slap out the tape and tell him to get out of her bedroom.
Well, she likes him.
She likes Max a lot. She's lonely.
Yes.
And she does find him endearing, you know. I mean,
It's also it's
being
obvious.
I'm not suggesting
being
that
the
she
object
doesn't
his
like him at
affection.
all,
Yeah.
but there's still she wants the attention, I think.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, her dead husband obviously has some weird connect through Max, and she keeps feeling that. She keeps his whole room intact exactly how it was.
Yeah, and
so
she
the whole
sleeps there.
And she sleeps there. The whole thing is very messed up, but it's also, again, what makes the character so colorful and so deep and intriguing.
Yeah. While that moment is happening, it's hammering how lonely she is in that he
Yes.
breaks into
A bit.
her dead husband's room,
Right,
where
right.
she's
Exactly.
asleep in the twin bed
Right.
from his teenage
Why?
childhood.
But, and this would be a big difference between, like, oh, well, it's emotional, and, you know, it's indie, it's you know, whatever, is the fact that even though you say it's hammered, look how that would be playing in now that our society is so steeped in that, and emotionalism is what everything is led by. That's what you hear about from the beginning. That's what she would mention at some point in time. It would be so much more hammered in. And, like, the fact that it's a heavy moment is really interesting because it plays better thinking, this is 1998, this is the man's second movie, you know, those things, than if you were to think, oh, well, we get it, you know.
Well, yeah. I don't say I mean that moment is.
Oh,
hammered. I don't
absolutely. No, I was
Yeah.
expounding upon what you were
Yeah.
saying.
Oh man, good thing we cleared that up.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Ben Stiller some more?
Absolutely.
So I've got a few more Ben Stillers in this pocket.
If you want to segue, we could mention that Owen Wilson's pictures are on the wall as her dead husband in that scene.
Yes.
Are they really? I didn't
As a
notice
child,
I never
his
noticed
childhood
that.
pictures.
that. I did not notice
Yeah.
that. When did his nose get all weird? Was it weird in the picture?
Eventually he'll grow into that nose.
I thought that was an injury.
Still waiting.
Right.
It was.
I thought so too.
I
But I
don't
don't
know.
know when.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson's like a modern Mark Hamill
I know.
in that respect. I
I know
think.
nothing.
So you mean in like 30 years he's going to be one of the ugliest men in the world?
And just those cartoon voices.
Yeah,
That would be awesome! I want to watch Batman with Owen Wilson in it.
Yeah,
very-
except that
He
it's
does-
going to be Cars
He
12.
does the
That's true.
Hertz car rental.
It's gonna be
I
like
don't live here. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Hover
Right.
Cars. Would be the subtitle of
Never
Cars
mind.
12.
The pre-subtitle.
Right. Hover Cars.
Hover
Cars 12.
Cars.
Cars 2. Larry the Cable Guy will still be collecting checks.
Is he in that movie?
He's in Cars.
Mater.
Really?
As a man who watches that movie almost every day, yes, he's in it. He's Mater.
Hey, we watched Cars 2 yesterday.
Yes, we did. We did watch it, but he's still in it.
Well, yeah. I mean,
You
Same
can't kill.
character.
You can't kill Larry the Cable Guy.
We've tried.
Wait.
Yeah. Let's
He's
just
a
say that I
he's a
have
beautiful
personally
ex.
invested several $100,000 into that, and it is just nothing doing.
Bill Murray keeps funding helicopters to
Right.
find him.
thanks, Bill Murray.
Yeah, fuck Larry the Cable Guy.
So what we really need to do is speculate what Owen Wilson would be like in like Cars 12. Is what he'll sound like when
Right.
he's
He
doing
will be doing an ironic impersonation of Jason Schwartzman as Cars
that.
12.
And then can they get Bill Murray to do one of them? That's the next question.
I think by the time we hit Cars 12.
I hope that the rest
But
of the
modern
Cars
Bill
movies,
Murray,
I
where
hope the
all of
rest-
his lines are delivered deadpan.
I want the rest of the Cars movies to back and forth, jump back and forth between being adaptations of Michael J. Fox films and adaptations of Michael Caine films.
Oh.
Because that's how 1 and 2 have gone. It's Doc Hollywood, and then it's anything Michael Caine was in the 70s.
They're all the same film.
They are all the same film. You can't argue with that.
I
Could they
suppose
also be
now
next?
I haven't seen Cars, but
I hope Back to
I
the
didn't
Future
real-
is next.
Ooh, that would be great.
Or Teen Wolf.
Maybe
I just
travel back
want
in time.
Cars 3
Definitely.
subtitle Get Carter.
No, that would have to be 4. 3 goes back to Michael J.
All right,
Fox.
Cars 4 subtitle Get Carter parentheses the Michael Caine one, not the Stallone one, and parentheses another parentheses inside of that, but Michael Caine's in the Stallone one as like a cameo and 2 parentheses.
12.
Right.
So,
How
Anyone
about
Rushmore
Rushmore?
vibes?
yeah, I know we're totally out of that one.
Disney Pixar's Rushmore Cars.
I would like it. I would like it better than the original, I think.
Oh, come on.
Well, it would have Larry the Cable Guy in it as Mater. Somehow.
You're right. Larry the Cable Guy does make everything he's in better.
Yes.
Being as he is a cancer.
I don't think that's...
I know that's not true.
But just take a moment and imagine
I will do nothing of
Rushmore
the kind.
with Larry the Cable Guy in it, okay? Think about how absurd that would be.
Who
He
would
would have to be. He
who
would
would
be
Larry
the
the
Scottish
Cable-
kid.
Yes.
He would be
yes,
the Scottish
I was
kid.
just
Sure?
thinking
No,
that.
you're right.
They
Yes.
would-
Probably.
Absolutely.
No, it wouldn't even be like he would not be playing a character.
It would
just
just be
be
Larry the Cable Guy.
Larry the
in
Cable Guy
Rushmore.
inserted into that role, just saying the lines.
He's just walking
And
around
then-
the school campus,
Right.
being Larry the Cable Guy.
Right, and then they're just like,
I
there's
always
that
wanted
guy
to
out
be in
there.
one of your
Boy,
fucking plays.
he just keeps trying to sell us
Kids keep throwing
these
rocks at him.
shitty boxer shorts that say "Get her done" on it, like his fucking Walmart merchandise. God, there's only so many shitty Realtree camo Zippos with his face on it that I can handle. But thank God I've got this fixie bike. That's Jason Schwartzman's
Yeah,
lines.
yeah.
Those are
It's a
his lines.
really long monologue halfway through the film.
Was this the first movie Mark Mothersbaugh did the music for? Or was
Yes.
there earlier?
He was the first one, but then he did Rushmore as well, and he did Life Aquatic after that.
So-
I mean, not Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums.
But this was, I mean, this is the first Wes Anderson movie he did music for, obviously.
Yeah.
But is this the first? Do you know?
No, he did many other films
I didn't.
and shows.
I was unaware of how long he'd been.
Because I mean, he did
About 20
Rugrats,
minutes at this
Oh, he did
point.
Rugrats, yeah, obviously.
but,
So Rugrats predates
He had done other
Rushmore.
stuff at that point, but
I did
he
know that.
he even mentions how throughout the career he has to convince Wes Anderson to add more things with different tones, because this whole movie he does a lot of like lyres and harpsichords and like higher end sounding things,
Yeah.
all plucky, small things, classical mandolins and things like that,
Okay.
which is cool because that goes along with the tone of like the 60s, British invasion rock and roll
Yeah.
that is in there, which is all those like mid range sounding guitars and like screechier vocals and stuff.
Well, apparently Wes Anderson originally wanted this movie to all be the Kinks.
Right,
sound.
correct. And he wanted Jason Schwartzman to be much more like Mick Jagger, and they found him instead and were like, well, this is nothing like what we wanted.
Thank God.
1800
Because the
people
movie
auditioned
is,
for this part.
the movie you just described is almost as bad as my Larry the Cable Guy version. Okay? Like, thank goodness that didn't happen.
There's just some guy like walking around. Bill Murray's looking at him. And he's just like, eagerly pursuing all the latest fads and trends. He's just singing King songs the whole
And
time.
the Kings actually, they might actually have other songs in it because they, it is a lot of British invasion stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yes, he is.
Yeah, he was supposed to be British. He was supposed to be rock and roll, and that's the whole thing. Him having all these clothes and stuff wasn't supposed to be so like nerdy and square and like strange and
Yeah, Jason Schwartzman
yeah.
showed up to his audition wearing the blazer and the patch that he had
Yes,
made
he had
himself.
made his own.
Created the character, and they instantly changed their minds about the whole damn thing.
And
Right.
really makes it a better film.
See,
Yeah.
As much as I'm not a huge fan of this film, the film you described would make me vomit.
There's just I
We're
feel
not
like
watchable.
there's just like a secret B-roll out there.
Yes, I
somewhere.
know.
That's just like
Get
the
Mick Jagger to
original
come in
Rushmore.
and-
That's just like Mick Jagger himself at that age.
yeah.
Like 75-year-old Mick Jagger and Bill Murray.
It's just, that's a really,
Yeah.
really weird
And
film.
like the whole like one of them's really old and one of them's really young thing was lost because they're both just old.
So they use that like kind of like really bad age reversal makeup that
Yeah.
they use on like other movies on Mick Jagger, so it's still obvious that he's old, but he's pretending to be 15 years old.
It's just
And
like
so
Mick
it's really
Jagger.
awkward when she's telling him no because
It's
he's so young.
he's older than she is.
Obviously, yeah.
By like
You're
40
15.
years.
And he's still just singing Kink songs, like the whole Mick Jagger is singing Kink songs the whole time, like really badly.
And flicking off the dean and lighting fires and like.
Well, I think that brings up a really interesting point in how much of this movie is made by the actors who were chosen for the roles. Originally, this was written before Bottle Rocket. This was the first script they finished.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, the fact that Schwartzman auditioning changed that character so much, and I'm sure that Venkman ending up in the movie.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Changed Bill Murray changed that character too.
They
So
actually wrote that role for Bill Murray in mind. They just didn't
Even
think
originally?
that they could. Yeah,
Huh.
they just didn't think that they could ever get him or get the script to him.
Right.
But it turns out that his agent was a huge fan of Bottle Rocket,
oh, that's good.
so took the script and made Murray read it, and then
And said, "Here's a copy of Bottle Rocket."
And he's like, I'm not gonna watch that.
Right, exactly.
so
Throws it in the
obsessed
trash
with
can
it,
in his basement.
Yeah,
I'm
that
super glad you know that.
he agreed to
That's
do
really
it
interesting.
for
Yeah.
scale instead of an actual,
Yeah.
fee.
Well, that is very interesting. But anyway,
But nonetheless, Jason Schwartzman being who he is in this film
And
means
who he
that
is
the
in life.
entire story is different than what they planned anyway.
Right.
Because what they described there would have made the film basically the opposite film.
Well, it
I mean,
would
it would
have
have
that
been-
youthfulness and the rebelliousness, but it wouldn't be in the same demeanor. It wouldn't be with the same intent. It would be because
Right.
it would be FU for FU's sake instead of
Right, which is not nearly as because the turnaround
It would not be
that we
like
go
a-
through in the middle of the film.
It would not be awkward.
That actually makes me like the second half of the film wouldn't exist.
Right.
You
would
see,
not-
you go from being like rock and roll, fuck you asshole, which right now he's awkward teenage boy that everybody who's ever been a teenage boy can kind of understand.
But
Anyway.
that's his
not.
point. Is like his rebellion
Well,
would be the difference would be like his rebelliousness in this is just like him like bumble fucking his way through all of these misguided attempts at things. Whereas if he'd just been like, I don't know, if he'd been Mick Jagger in youth makeup, shitty youth makeup,
Right.
then it would have just all been like really straight faced, like intentional. Whereas like you get
Right, he would've
like
accomplished
he has
these things.
his rebelliousness is
Right,
born
yeah.
from angst, but his own complete maladjusted incompetence turns all his like inner angst into these like really dumb but intensely planned like outbursts.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to like if he'd just been like a straight cut rebellious character, all of this would have been like he would not have been the same character, because even though he would have even doing all of the exact same things, you would not get the sense that like he thinks this is going to work, but there is no way this is going to work
Right,
because
right,
he's
yeah.
an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Like
if he had been more Jaggerish, it would have been Van Wilder in high school instead of
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes the
You can't make it
turnaround.
the
slip.
character would have been more successful.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
he would have
like-
accomplished those
And,
things.
and it makes it would have made it really strange when you hit that character change, because he would have gone from being technically very successful at what he accomplishes to being also still successful but not as much of an asshole.
Right, yeah, it would have been just a cleaning up of his act, not
Right.
a total turnaround
Yeah.
of his
Yes.
like viewpoint and
Yeah.
everything like that. And I think the plays that he does are really amazing as well, because each one pinpoints different parts of his life. When he's at the original school, when he then goes to public school, and then when he comes back, and each one is so inappropriate for a high school. It's so awesome.
I like nuns shooting rifles out of windows.
Oh my gosh, and like how many explosives were used
Right.
for the movie, let alone how that would be in a high school for that last one. I think is really cool, because one of the only things that he is good at is just doing what he does. And that's starting clubs that only he enjoys or is a part of. It's, doing the little rituals that only Max does. And then it's writing plays. And he's really good at it. Everybody adores him because he writes those plays. And they actually have in the gala afterwards or whatever, they have different parts of the catering area set up
Yeah,
bunkers and
different-
stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they point out in the commentary how it's there's just like nude pinups everywhere.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we thought, how would this be in a high school? Oh, because it's Max and he wouldn't compromise anything and fight tooth and nail to get it. And that's the point of the movie, you know.
And
This
it's the reason it was rated R.
right. Like, I mean, there's not really much else there. Like,
I didn't actually realize it was rated R.
Yeah,
I
that's really
wonder, based solely on the sort of adoration for the plays he produces, that Max receives, how many like fledgling screenwriting careers were launched based solely on watching. I want to, and like for high school students, like he can do it. I want to do that at my school.
Right.
You got a bunch of 15-year-olds writing like Vietnam War era like screenplays and stuff.
They did freaking Serpico in the public school. Like that's amazing.
Given how many indie filmmakers, basically aped Rushmore and the Jason Schwartzman character archetype, and then just kept aping it into their real lives. There's a certain amount of that I think did happen, where a bunch of people misjudged where Rushmore sort of gets its I don't want to say heart from, but like a bunch of people misjudged.
You don't want to say heart, but you mean heart.
Right.
Misjudge where it gets its heart that's not a heart from. And think that Rushmore is the indie pretensions and the like borderline, like the curtains opening thing, or the fixie bike, or Jason Schwartzman, or everything Jason Schwartzman does in this film, or like the really deadpan Bill Murray role in some respect, like those, or like the hyper creepy attention to personal quirks and stuff at great length that goes on in this film with all of the characters as being like what makes this a great film. And that's the stuff you see aped ad infinitum in every other insufferable, like super dry indie film that has come out subsequent to Rushmore.
That's always been my problem with Catcher in the Rye. Has been not been Catcher in the Rye, but all of the Holden Caulfield imitations that came out after Catcher in the Rye.
But I mean, we could say that about anything that's remarkable or does something different.
Well, exactly.
Immediately, as soon as it happens, people say, "Oh, I get that." And a lot of good and a lot of bad happens from it, and that artist must continue on doing what they do, even if what they do is that.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, hope it doesn't hold a lot of people back. You know, I mean, Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth still writes songs that sound like Sonic Youth, and like even though a bunch of bands have turned that into a bunch of garbage, like he still does it the best. And you know, that's something I really enjoy about Wes Anderson, is that even though I didn't like necessarily Moonrise Kingdom as much as I've liked his other films, I'm equally as excited to see the next film, and will throw Moonrise Kingdom exactly where it needs to be once I see that, you know.
See, I really love Moonrise Kingdom, and it's my favorite Wes Anderson film. And unlike I view Wes Anderson movies like I view the Walkman albums. I just think every single one is getting better.
Right. And I don't think it's a step down. It's just a lateral move in a different direction. And like, again, it being after Fantastic Mr. Fox, he understands movement, he understands color. He literally is telling everybody how to move everything that they do. Whereas again, Rushmore, he says, "Okay, we'll have this other guy do it. Okay, we'll just change everything. Okay, this works for them." You know, now he is a little more meticulous, and it has become more of a children's sort of thing, more than it even was then when it had hints of that. But again, that's not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's a step down.
I would not mind, speaking of Moonrise Kingdom and going back to an earlier point, I think he's done enough in his sort of straight-face stuff. I really would like to see Bruce Willis just do a Bill Murray and start. Now's the time. Restart your late in life acting career as like really deadpan comic roles.
Can't do it. Red 2 and the new Die Hard are both come out after Moonrise Kingdom. It's too late.
I know it's too late,
but he does a wonderful job.
I know.
But remember, Garfield came out after Rushmore, so we're not guaranteeing.
Theory destroyed.
The man has to pay his bills.
I was actually going to say, so did Get Low, and Get Low he plays a very different character as well. Have you seen Get Low?
I haven't seen Get Low.
Oh my God, he plays a really sketchy, money-hungry owner of a funeral parlor.
With Bill Murray or Bruce Willis?
Bill Murray. And basically, this old man, he basically tries to spends a year of his life or however long just planning his funeral and like making it this
Robert
huge
Duvall.
deal. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's an amazing.
I remember it now, but I never saw it.
It makes it a
It's
big
good.
party, and but Bill Murray's character is very conniving, very spirited, very a lot of things that you hadn't seen from
Very
Bill Murray in a
slick.
while. Very slick, tiny mustache, But-
tiny mustache.
And not to continue rambling, but just one more thing about Bill Murray and Wes Anderson's relationship is not only is Life Aquatic is he so drastically different. In Life Aquatic, he is incredibly flamboyant in so many ways. About he's very angry, he's mad, he's violent and humorous. But in Royal Tenenbaums, the second movie with Wes Anderson, he plays equally as a dry character from a totally different vantage point. He plays him as kind of a more studious, and he's not as sarcastic, any of those things, but he's equally as dry. So I just always found that really interesting, how he could do a
He's
character like
doormat.
that. Right, he is definitely a doormat. He's a pushover where
Yeah, he's
he
not like that in the other films.
yeah, exactly. Even if he's let his life go to shit, he at least is angsty enough to then, kind of try and have an affair and all the things that he does with Max. But
I would agree with a lot. I just would really like Bruce Willis to stop making Die Hard movies and start making more
But what? I
late
want
in
to say
life
this.
dry comic roles.
What
I agree.
if they start making Die Hard movies, but with this new version of Bruce Willis? What would that be like?
A
I think it
film
would be
that would never be
unbelievable.
greenlit. Is what
Unbreakable.
that-
Unbelievable.
is what it would be.
yeah, basically. He had. That was kind of like it kind of petered out for him because it turned out M. Night Shyamalan was a fucking hack who was with a one-trick pony. But that was like another part of Bruce Willis's career that I kind of like got really excited about was he was taking a lot of these like really subdued. I think Unbreakable gets a bad rap. I think the bad rap.
Such a good movie.
I think the bad rap it gets
love
is
it.
I can see the
It
parts
was
where it kind of deserves it, but I like have a apparently disproportionately high amount of liking for Unbreakable, and I think that for a while there I was really excited about Bruce. It was kind of like Bruce Willis was doing a Bill Murray in Rushmore,
Right.
and taking a really different tact with the roles he was taking, where he was really vulnerable as opposed to being the invincible action hero. He was really he's just really subdued as opposed to being in 11 all the time.
Well, he didn't know what to say instead of immediately knowing just what to say, every time.
So it was he had like a really paced delivery, So it was in a lot of ways Moonrise Kingdom. I was like, oh, it's Bruce Willis taking chances again.
Oh yeah.
And then then he stopped. And
I put a stop to this conversation, but basically, in the Criterion Collection, until Moonrise the Kingdom inevitably gets in here, we'll never have a chance to talk about Bruce Willis. So, we're going to go ahead and take this opportunity.
Yeah, we might as well. While we're discussing,
So we got the one opportunity.
What?
We already did it. Armageddon.
Oh yeah, he was in Armageddon.
That-
I have completely blacked out Armageddon being a
Well, I mean,
Criterion.
that's already over. So
is the first Die Hard not in the Criterion?
No, the first Die Hard is not in the Criterion.
So we're
Collection.
going by
How the
release.
fuck did Armageddon get in and the first Die Hard?
You guys are going by release, right?
We are going by
Spine number.
Criterion's release.
Right.
So it's
did
their
you,
spine number.
how long have you been out of the laser discs?
Well, we are going by their DVD, and everything
Oh.
that was released on Laserdisc was re-released on the DVDs.
But at different times.
Well,
That's-
but they kept the same spine numbers.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you still are going through them.
Right, you can
spine
choose
number.
release year
Okay.
to sort it by, but we sort
Which is
by
why I
spine number.
still don't understand how 1999's Armageddon was numbered 25.
Yeah.
So, but
I'm gonna go ahead and say that Larry the Cable Guy had something to do with that. In
I
that,
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Hudson Hawk ends up in the Criterion.
Yes, me
Collection.
too. It's gonna be beautiful.
We'll get
We
a
have to
chance.
mention it every
speaking
episode.
of
It's a
Bruce
rule.
Willis out on a limb rolls, Hudson Hawk, everybody.
What a great
We
movie.
mention that movie in every episode.
I
ever.
wish that were true, but we do.
Seven
try.
Samurai
Episode.
really
I really want to use the Philosopher's Stone for that reason.
remade in modern times. The Seven Samurai as a Hudson Hawk. It's really basically the same story.
Well, anyone have anything else to say actually on the topic of Rushmore?
No, we're pretty
I
much
think we're
fully
about-
into Bruce Willis territory.
We'll pull this to a close.
I love the movie. Obviously, it took me longer to like than Royal Tenenbaums or Life Aquatic
Yeah.
or Darjeeling, but at the same time, I like it for the same aspects as Donovan actually put very well. It's distilled and it's proto.
I definitely like watching it this time more than I liked
me
watching
too.
the first time I watched it. But this is only the second time I've watched it, so
Continue. Watch it again.
we'll watch it again. Maybe
I think
tonight.
that's also been a
Maybe
I
later
don't think
tonight.
it's going to happen for me, but I enjoyed it better than I did the first 2 times. So
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, it's a film that like I don't ever just like I'm in the mood for Rushmore. I want to feel dry and shitty for like 2 hours.
We get
Like-
that all the time.
But like
I enjoy that.
but it there's kind of a growing consensus, at least in that respect, as someone who initially only liked that one scene with Bill Murray just at maximum misery.
In
Of
Budweiser
like
shorts.
it's one of those things that like you I think it requires, especially if you don't take to it immediately, it is something that like if you come back to it a couple of years later, you may appreciate it more or at least dislike it less.
So what you're saying is it's coffee or beer, in that you're not going to like it the first time. You're going to acquire a taste for
It's
it.
an acquired. I think
So
Rushmore.
by the 10th time
in a
I
way
watch
that-
it,
in a way that some of his subsequent films, again, I think most people who watch Life Aquatic immediately take to Life Aquatic in a way that people don't necessarily take to Rushmore. And then there's people who are just like super diehard, loved Rushmore the first time they saw it. Those people all own fixie bikes.
I loved Rushmore the first time I saw it, and I do not have a fixie bike. But
Exception
I will
proves
say
the rule.
that that in addition to multiple viewings, I think that you need more life experience. And perhaps this is just because I have a lot of terrible friends who have awful qualities, but then have this shining, happy, delightful quality that makes me not completely write them off.
I would agree with that. That's probably been counted in other films that we've watched where like you first are forced to watch it by somebody you know.
Seven Samurai
When
and
you're
my
like
dad.
at an inappropriate when you're at an inappropriate age and it does not click.
You're like, I don't understand
And then you get a
why
chance
these
to watch it
stupid
later.
farmers get
I
all
felt
these
that way
samurai.
about Pleasantville. I did not understand Pleasantville at all the first time I saw it. And then I got older.
And now you watch it
and
every
it's
day.
like, no. But I got older and I was like, oh, because
There's the whole
us and
satirical
love and
element to
sense of
RoboCop,
colour.
largely lost on me as an 8-year-old.
You know what?
Like the like
In all
super tongue in cheek.
honesty, that is not. Like we talked about that.
Right,
when
we
did the
as
RoboCop
we
episode.
discussed the RoboCop,
It's like this
these-
is a much more deep film.
like the
than
super
8-year-old Pat thought it
super
was.
straight-faced dark satire aspects of the first RoboCop film, like the super dark societal commentary about like corporate America run
Right,
amok
yeah.
and like how RoboCop is a walking metaphor for the dehumanization of the populace by corporate America and police departments run like all this like 1 year older like realizing what an incredibly like dark satirical work the first RoboCop is. Like unfortunately, like a lot of I think films of that nature, a film that was then franchised and every subsequent
Right.
entry in the franchise abandoned it to be a straight-faced pile of crap. That's in some respects maybe Rushmore is one that the older you are and the perhaps wider your perspective is, the more it will, if maybe not necessarily appeal to you, but the more you will understand or relate to the film.
Well, it's something we talked about with RoboCop. It's something we talked about with Time Bandits. You need to be at the right point in your life to appreciate the movie.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just going to hate it.
Right. Well, that's the weird thing is, especially with Rushmore, I think the major thing is that when you first watch the film, you probably are Max. And then the next time you watch the film, if you watch it again, you were Max. And that changes your perspective entirely.
And now you're Bill Murray.
And eventually
Now
you
you've
become
done
Bill
Garfield.
Murray.
Your whole life is over, man.
What 15-year-old
Time.
is not Max?
Right,
In a certain
absolutely.
way. And when you are that 15-year-old, you're like you can't understand, you can't comprehend why.
You are such a cock-up.
Yeah, but then when you're older, you get to look back and go,
Garfield.
Man, I
I
was
did Garfield.
a total asshole.
Right.
And it changes things.
How much they all slander each other and talk about blowjobs and just all that stuff. I remember feeling like, this is weird, and then being like, wait a second, people are really this cruel, all the time.
And you mix that with this
again, going back to my point that this is a movie in which you aren't, in some way, you are not supposed to like any of the characters. They are miserable, nasty people being again, it gains its humorous element from how almost absurdly over the top, but it at its core is a movie about nasty, bitter people, and psychopathic teenagers, just being as cruel and vindictive and mean to each other as they can possibly orchestrate for 2 hours.
Which really represents life very well.
Right.
At that age,
We've all
especially.
done Garfield sooner or later. You know?
Everyone's
Deep
got their
thoughts
Garfield.
here on Lost to Criterion.
Some of us have a lot more Garfield than others.
Some of us have done Garfield twice. Or a sequel to Garfield with Larry the Cable Guy. As
Muhammad.
Nermit, or whatever the dog's name is.
Odie's the dog's name. Nermal is the other cat.
Right, whatever.
They
The one they're
always said
constantly...
Abu Dhabi.
The one that they're mailing to various... We've all been mailed to Abu Dhabi.
Wasn't there a Larry the Cable Guy movie that he got mailed out to
Abu Dhabi. Metal, right? Scroll,
Sooner or later we're all going to be 38 and we're all going to be mentally mailed to Abu Dhabi.
I think there was a Larry the Cable Guy movie where he got mailed to Abu Dhabi, though.
And then he made a bunch of towelhead jokes or something.
No,
It was like, hey guys.
Actually in Mexico,
Well,
but he
they were
thought
just in Mexico.
he was in
It
Iraq.
was like, maybe
this
because
is
I'm
real. This is
racist. That's the
real.
joke, get
this
it?
is
I'm
the real
unironically
thing.
racist. Get her
We
done.
used to play it at my gym, and I had to watch it.
Oh, I'm so tired.
Yes.
So
You
sad.
should just not exercise anymore.
If Larry the Cable Guy was in Garfield,
That would
It would
convince
be-
me not to.
Yeah, me too.
it would be played pretty straight.
Yeah, but now they get to listen to two conversations at the same time. It's awesome.
It's fine. It's fine.
They're one conversation one ear, the other conversation the other ear.
We'll definitely separate it audio-wise there, because that's
That'll
much
make
more
life
work than
easier.
I'm putting into this. Thank you all for being here.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for listening, because that's your job. That's how we've labeled you. And
How do you like your label?
You gotta play by my rules now.
Thank
Yeah,
you
yeah.
for letting me speak in a British accent.
you're very welcome. I'm thoroughly convinced that that's your real voice. Absolutely.
I'll never stop.
Oh,
I knew a girl in college who did that.
Really?
It was not good.
no. I knew a guy in junior high who did that.
Yeah, it was you, Adam.
Yeah, it was me.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah, it was.
I know a guy in junior high who had to keep watching The Hobbit and Seven Samurai.
Over and over.
One of us made out like a bandit. The other one had to keep watching The Hobbit and Seven Samurai in junior high.
Well, next week I think we'll probably have quite a few fewer people on the podcast, and we'll be starting Jean Cocteau's The Orphic Trilogy with The Blood of a Poet. And I'm sure that'll be much more interesting than Rushmore.
Pretty much.
I am excited.
Man.
Thanks once again for listening, and we'll leave you with a little more from Jonathan. Hey,
Word.
You've been listening to Lost in Criterion, a production of With Two Brains. The show is hosted by Adam Glass and John Patrick Owatari Dorgan. Jonathan Hape did the music, and Adam Glass also edited it all together. Feel free to contact us by email via lostincriterion@withtwobrains.com or join us on the web at www.withtwobrains.com.